Hello, today we are going to start the topic of indices, or what in general terms we sometimes just talk about as powers, and we will look at the 5 basic laws of indices, which is the multiplication, the division, the power to a power, then the zero index and the negative index. Now, when I teach my learners, I like them to move specific laws. So we represent certain laws by moving parts of our bodies, and that is to actually remember that we move it repeatedly. Okay, by then the learners know how to move and they will not forget these laws. So I'm trying to now show you in the format of pictures how I teach them the multiplication law. So we are starting here with the multiplication law. You would say when we multiply, and in that you would fold your arms so that it shows a multiplication sign. Powers we show by raising our fist above our head. Importantly, the head must be below, the fist must be at the top, because the index or the power is actually written at the top of a number. Then with the same base, if we raise our fist to the top, then the body is the base. It is standing at the bottom. So we just simply show our body and we say with the same base. And then we again say we add the index. So we raise our hands and with our fingers we show an addition sign. So I repeat, you move by saying when we multiply, fold your arms into a multiplication sign. Powers, raise your fist. With the same base, show towards your body. We add the index. We have raised our arms and we show with the fingers a little addition sign. Okay? When we multiply powers with the same base, we add the index. And that we do repeatedly, and then the learners will remember the law. So when we now get to example, when we multiply, so you've got a multiplication. Powers, we've got indices with the same base. Both of them are A. Okay? The law says same base, so it will remain A. Then it says we add the index. So 6 plus 2. And that will give us an answer of A to the power of 8. Okay, that's the multiplication law. When we multiply powers with the same base, we add the index, which gives me A to the power of 8. The second one is the division law. Okay, we will move it in the following way. When we divide, so you will expand your arms, so this gives you the division line. Then your head is one dot, and at your tummy you've got a second dot. So this represents the division. When we divide powers, we raise our fist again. With the same base, we show to our body again. Okay, we subtract the index. So we start by having our hands raised above our heads, them together, and then moving them out into both directions, which then gives us that subtraction sign. Okay, so I repeat, when we divide powers with the same base, show to your body, we subtract. Take your fists to the top of the head and then expand them to the outside, which gives us the subtraction sign. So when we then look at an example of this, we again got when we divide, we've got powers because they are indices with the same base. They got the same base. right? The same base. We then subtract the index. Oh, I'm sorry, that should be blue. We subtract the index, okay? There's the subtraction, which then gives me an answer of A. 5 minus 2 is 3, so my answer is 5 to the power of 3. Then we've got the power to a power law. So we basically have a base and an exponent, an index, and then brackets and another index. So that we will move by doing the following. When we have a power to a power, so you raise your fist, this is the power, and your other hand fist you raise on top of that, okay? So move your hand, your fist above your head, and with your other hand you move your fist above that. So that is when we have a power, that's the first one, to a power, that's the second one. We multiply the index. So with your hands on top of your head, show a multiplication with your two index fingers. I repeat, you raise your fist when we have a power, then you raise the next fist on top of that to a power. We multiply the index, show a multiplication sign with your index fingers on top of your head, because that's where we do the multiplication. So when we look at that application, we've got an example of 2 to the power of 10 to the power of 3. The law says we must multiply the index, which is then 2 to the power of 10 times 3, which gives me an answer of 2 to the power of 10 times 3 is 30. Or if you look at the next example, AB in brackets to the power of 3, then don't forget that the power of A is 1 and the power of B is also 1. So that would then give me A to the power of a power is then A to the power of 1 times 3 times B to the power of 1 times 3. And if we calculate that, we will have A to the power of 3 times B to the power of 3. Or that can even apply when we have a division. So once again, remember, if there is no power, then it is actually an index of 1. So now we can have A to the power of 1 times 3 divided by B to the power of 1 times 3, which gives me an answer of A to the power of 3 divided by B to the power of 3. So I repeat, the power to the power law is when we have a power to a power, we multiply the index. Okay, then the next two are just simply easy to remember. The one with a 0 index. So whenever we have a 0 index, in this case, the 0 counts for the 4, okay, as well as the k. Remember that you basically multiply 1 times 0 and 1 times 0, okay? So that gives me the power to a power law is 4 to the power of 0 and k to the power of 0, both of which will be 0. And any power to any base to the power of 0 equals 1. Okay? I want you to associate a 0 index with a 1. So that will be a 1, that will be a 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. So a 0 index is always 1. A 0 index is always 1. We can show a little 0 on top of our heads as a 0 index is equal to 1. That is then your body. You are a single person. A 0 index is a single person, a single one. And the law for negative indices is also quite easy to remember. If you have a negative index, that becomes a positive index when you make that the denominator. Okay? So, when you have a whole number with a negative index, it becomes a fraction. So that is then the denominator with a positive index. And the reverse is also true. When you have a fraction with a negative index, that then becomes a whole number with a positive index. So I repeat, the negative index law. If you have a whole number with a negative index, it becomes a fraction with a positive index. If you have a fraction with a negative index, it becomes a whole number with a positive index. And these are the 5 basic laws of indices which you need to know. My next video will be on the indices, fractional indices. Please try and move these laws as I have taught you, because people, if you move those laws, you'd say that a few times repeatedly, you will not forget them at all.